Welcome to RealTalk with Lillian M. Welcome to RealTalk with Lillian M. You know what time it is? It is time for the truth. It is time for nothing but the truth. So the truth that we're talking about today is the Europeans and the hashtag African immigrants. While I have been seeing Europeans complaining a lot about African immigrants immigrating to Europe, overpopulating Europe, whatever, and I've decided to talk about it. I just decided to talk about it. If you ask me, I don't believe that Europeans should be complaining about African immigrants at all. Nah, I don't think so. Because without beating around the bush, I strongly believe that you created this problem. You people in Europe, you created this problem. You created this problem by introducing your European lifestyle to us. So this thing of you complaining about African immigrants, it doesn't sit well with me. Because I've seen people complaining, African immigrants, they're coming in boats, they do this, they do that. What were you expecting when you were coming here hundreds of years ago? Coming here, flocking here, what were you expecting? You introduced to us this lifestyle. You introduced this lifestyle to us. Yeah. Us in Africa, we were busy hunting with our ancestors. Hunting for food. We were busy. We had our own things. Remember, our ancestors survived in Africa for thousands, if not millions of years in Africa. We've been surviving. We had our own medicine. We had our own traditional doctors. We had our own private thing. We had our own food hunting. We went to eat fruits in the jungles. We were eating fruits, wild fruits, very healthy, by the way, hunting of our food. You came here and introduced to us KFC. You came here and introduced to us McDonald's. Now that we are following you to Europe for more KFC and McDonald's, you're complaining. I know. Nah. You introduced to us this lifestyle. I don't think complaining is okay. I don't think so. You create this problem. So you people complaining about Africans, immigrants coming to your countries, Europe, I just want to mention Europe, I find it a little bit hypocritical because you are the one who introduced this lifestyle to Africans. Africans were living for millions of years in Africa without even thinking of coming. They were just fine. They were fine. I'm talking to you today just because my ancestors from millions of years ago survived. I am fully African, fully black. Talking to you right now. Why? Because my ancestor survived for millions, if not billions, if not trillions of years. Without the Europeans or the European way of life. They were surviving on their African way of life. Hunting for food. My grandmother told me that our ancestors before used to do hunting, hunter-gathering, hunting for food. They would go and hunt. Up until today, Africans, they do hunt. It might not be now legal. It might be illegal now, but in the raw areas or whatever, they do farm. They do go hunt. They could just doing it. We were fine. I'm actually fine, and I'm actually healthier most of some of you in Europe. I said that. We were fine. We were cruising, riding hyenas, we were cruising in Africa, riding hyenas, riding tigers, riding elephants, riding lions, riding crocodiles. We were cruising. We were cruising nicely, wearing animal skins. We were just cruising nicely over here. You came. You didn't just come to Africa. You people, you brought hatred. You people brought colonization. You brought hatred to Africa. You brought wars. Africans had every year. Africans are celebrating Independence Day. What is Independence Day? Independent from what? From you people, Europeans. You didn't just come. To be honest, you people, when you come to Africa, you didn't just come. You came with full of hatred. You introduced our people to racism. You came with wars, killing our sisters, it was just trying to, you didn't come in peace. I mean, it's our history. You came here trying to take over, forcibly taking our lands, forcibly. Some of you even today are still occupying our lands, our African indigenous lands. You stole during colonization, so-called colonization. You started introducing this thing to us. Introducing to us pizza, introducing to us things that we don't know, like pizza, like KFC, like McDonald's, like all these, like Coca-Cola, Fanta. You introduce this to us, to this unhealthy, nice food, to this unhealthy, tasty food. Yes, this food are very much unhealthy. That's why most of you over there are sick, and many Africans are healthy. You introduced to us to this nice food. Now we are flocking to Europe to look for more. You are complaining. You have yourself to blame. You have yourself to blame. That's just the truth. Why would you complain? You created this problem. I'm not saying Africans should flock to your countries, in European countries, but I'm saying let us not be hypocritical. You are the one who introduced Africans to this kind of lifestyle. You introduced Africans to this lifestyle. If you have left Africans cruising in Africa, in the jungles of Africa, living in the caves, we're supposed to be living like that, and that's okay. And I would like that. I don't have to worry about bills. Do you know the life of not worrying about bills, worrying about what you don't have to worry about anything. If you're hungry, go in the forest and eat white fruit. But no, you destroyed that. You destroyed our lives, our ancestral lives. You have no right to complain about us flocking to countries looking for more peace because you started this. Look at China. China do not have any problem with black or African people flocking to their countries or African immigrants like having a lot of them. No, because they didn't come to Africa to fetch Africans to trying to make them slaves or to try to make. No, they didn't. They don't have that problem. You people you saw Africa and you saw some of them as your slaves, and you saw them as people you can just take their lands. You saw people you can just steal their lands. You saw people that you can just introduce this European stuff. You introduce this to us. What am I saying? I'm saying you introduce this to us, Africans. I find that you complaining about us immigrating to your country a little bit hypocritical. You have to understand. You know, one thing about me, I don't like hypocrites. I just don't like hypocrites. Because you have to acknowledge the fact that you introduce this lifestyle to us. You know, I don't like people who create their problems and then they want to act like victims. Europeans, you are not entirely victims of African immigrants. You are not. You introduced this lifestyle to Africans. You introduced this lifestyle to Africans. They are flocking to your countries to look for that life. Africans were cruising nicely on top of crocodiles. They were cruising nicely with riding lions, riding cheetahs, riding black mambas. They were cruising nicely. Survived for thousands, if not billions of years. If you have left Africans alone in Africa like that, cruising, it doesn't matter. Maybe you were laughing like, oh my God, look at them, they're still living in our... That's how God created it. First of all, that's how God created it. That's how God wanted it. If God wanted the world to be full of taller buildings, he would have created that. But he didn't see that as meaningful. If you have left us in our jungle cruising on top of Europeans, listen to me. If you have left us Africans cruising on top of crocodiles, riding hyenas, traveling with black mambas, traveling with elephants, riding lions, and you have left us like that, you wouldn't be having African immigrants problem that you're complaining today. Let us face the fact. One thing about me, I like the facts. I like the fact. So you complaining about this. The same goes to I'm gonna make a topic about this. The same goes to Black America. Americans have no right, under my opinion, to complain about black people. You people, you kidnapped these people. You took these people, forced these people, put them in chain to come to America to work for you for free as your slaves. You now today you have the guts to complain about black people. You created this problem yourselves. You created this problem. If you have left if you have left Africans in Africa, not forcing them to come to work for you for free, you wouldn't be having black people problem in America. The reason why you are having black people in America, actually I want to make a topic about this because I've seen Americans complaining too much about black people. I think in their complaining, they're just exaggerating. They want to paint them as criminals, as difficult, as that. You created that problem. I don't like people who create their problems and then want to act like victims. Europeans, they create their own problems. Then down the line, they want to act like victims. They want to complain. By introducing Africans to your European Western life of way of life, you created problems to yourself. By trying to enslave Africans, forcing them and kidnapping them, forcing them from Africa, putting them to America, you created your own problem. Now you do not want to deal with the problem that you created. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't just work like that. So I am just saying, when I hear these Europeans in Europe, they complain, they in the UK or Britain, whatever, they in the Europe, they complain about African immigrants flocking to their countries. They haven't started. And the other thing that I want to say is that you people, you seem to be, you people, you introduce this lifestyle to Africans, Europeans. Now we have these code leaders. Some of them, they end up as dictators. You don't want to condemn these dictators who don't want to leave the power. They want to stack on power, live on power forever. And as they live on, as they want to stack as leaders, there are no development. Look at the roads in their countries. Look at their buildings. Look at the way of life of their people. Look at the market areas of their people. Horrible. So what's going to happen? You don't condemn those dictators in Africa. You know what happens next? The Africans are just going to flock to your country, to Europe. They're just going to leave their Africa and flock to your country for better life. If you people are serious about, you don't want African immigrants or if you don't want more African immigrants, stop supporting dictators. How can one president be president over 10 years, for over 10 years or 20 years? One president with no change. If there was change, like you see, like the roads, just look at their city roads. Will tell you the president of Africa has been a president for 10 years, but look how bad things are. Yet the same president once more turn over and over again. Yet you don't condemn those people. Or say, no. If you keep on, you have been a president for 10 years and nothing has changed. Your people are suffering. They're suffering more. And the more your people suffer, the more they're going to flock to Europe, to our countries in Europe. And we're going to have African immigrant crisis. No, you don't want to condemn. You like it like that. You like to see Africans in that state. You don't want to condemn the dictators who don't want to leave the power. You know, when the citizens try to fight these dictators, they get shot. They make sure that they get shot, they get killed. So if you are really serious about African immigrants, you need to see the root cause of the problem. Now, the root cause of the problem, most African countries, is the African leaders. Some of them do not want to leave the power. I don't understand, how can a president, you have been president for 10 years, and your country looks like, it looks like a one big village. Your people are struggling, are doing hand to mouth. If Europe is very much serious about African immigrants, they should look into the leadership in Africa. I strongly believe African leaders should not be leaders for more than 10 years. Because when a leader gets comfortable as a leader, is just going to be a leader, they don't develop. Once a leader knows that, I have 10 years deadline, they will work more because they have a target. They get relaxed. Most of them are being accused of corruption. They feel comfortable doing all that. And the more these dictators stay in power, the more African immigrants are going to flock into your countries. This thing is simple as cutting butter with a hot knife. The more dictators stays in power, more than 10, 15, 20 years, one president and nothing, there's no change. Nothing! Just look at the way of life. Look at the way of life for Chinese, and then look at the way of life of dictatorship works when the country is being developed. Maybe. Not when people are poor like this. They're just going to flock to your European countries. So you people complaining about, first of all, I'm just making this video because I'm just tired of hearing Europeans complaining about African immigrants. I had African immigrants this, African immigrants this. They haven't started. There are more to come. First of all, you introduce this life to us, like bro, you introduce this lifestyle to us. I'm just being honest right now. That's the truth. Europeans, you introduced Western life to us. Now, us, the Africans, we are now flocking to countries looking for more pizza, more Western life. Are we wrong? Are we wrong? But let us be honest here. But let us be honest here. Let's say I have a field. Let's say I'm a farmer and I plant bananas. And then there are a lot of monkeys everywhere around my farms. But these monkeys, they don't eat bananas. Now, one day I decided to introduce a banana to monkeys. They started to like it. They tasted a banana for the monkey tasted a banana for the first time. For thousands and thousands of years, monkeys were not eating banana. They didn't know they could eat banana. They thought you can't eat bananas. But me as a farmer, a farmer who farms banana, I introduced the banana to the monkey. And then the monkey realized, oops, the banana tastes nice. You can actually eat bananas. The monkey starts telling each other, wow, we didn't know that these bananas taste nice. And then I'm like, yeah, they taste nice. It's nice. I introduced these bananas to the monkeys. They love. Oh, wow, we love the bananas. And then one day I wake up. My whole banana field is finished. The monkey ate all my bananas. Do I complain? I mean, let us be honest. It's my fault. Well, I have every right to complain, but at the same time, it's my fault. It's me who introduced bananas to the monkeys. Now the monkeys are flocking to my banana field to steal my bananas. That the same thing can be said about this African immigrant thing. You people introduced your European way of life to us. Now we are flocking to Europe looking for the same better life. You are having a problem. Don't you think that's a little bit hypocritical? You must have yourself to blame yourself. You have yourself to blame. You just have yourself to blame. If monkeys are now coming in numbers to finish my bananas, I have me to blame. Because you have to understand that bananas are not. You have to understand the fact that monkeys are not capable of planting bananas. They can't plant bananas. They rely on me to plant bananas. The same can be said by Africans. Most Africans, leaders or Africa in general, they're failing to develop the countries. It's not a secret. It's third world. They're failing. There are people living in poverty, extreme poverty. Look at African roads. Look at African roads full of potholes. Look at just Africans, cities. They cannot be compared to other cities like Asia and Asia there. Which means they are failing to make the European standard that you have introduced. Now, they are now flocking to countries. They're now flocking to Europe. You're looking for more bananas. Looking for more European way of life. So, yeah. So to blame African immigrants entirely for coming to your countries, that sounds a little bit hypocritical. It sounds a little bit not, I don't know, it's just not right. Just doesn't sound right, because you introduced this lifestyle to us. You have no idea how much I'm now addicted to. I can't say addicted. You have no idea how much I love KFC. And my ancestors didn't know anything about KFC. Now I'm coming to Europe for more KFC or to America for more KFC. You're now having a problem? Oh, give me a break. Give me a break. You introduced this lifestyle to us and you just have to deal with us. You just have to deal with us because we didn't come to Europe. We didn't come to Europe. We were fine. I told you we were fine. We were cruising. I told you we were cruising. Our sisters were cruising. We're cruising nicely here. We're cruising nicely in Africa. Cruising nicely in Africa. Swimming with crocodiles. Hippopotamus, swimming with them. Eating together with tigers. Yeah. We were fine. So I've heard some white people saying, oh, if it was not for us, white people, you'd still be living in mud. Yes, I would want to live in mud. Trust me, people who live in mud, those people you mock, they have better, peaceful life. The recent studies has shown that African people are mentally strong than anybody in the world. Why is that? Because most of them, they live in huts. They do not have to watch CNN, BBC. They do not have to go through these race things, race wars. There's wars. Every time you're watching race wars, you're watching racism, race, whatever wars. You're talking about race. Every time you're talking about wars, fighting. They don't have time. They don't know. They don't know any of those things. So they're mentally strong. They don't have anything to distract their mental health. All those white people who brag about, oh, it is us who introduced this life to you. What life? This life is just stressful. And the food that you call the European Western food, it's very unhealthy. Unhealthy. In and out of doctors. I remember some days I was so much kind of addicted to KFC. Eating KFC almost, I don't know how much I spent on KFC. And I ended up, the doctor was like, I ended up with the stomach problems. And the doctor was like, you need to stop eating this type of food. You have to go back and eat healthy food. So much unhealthy bragging about burgers. Burgers and fried chips and those things. Unhealthy things. I mean, so I decided to make this video. Because I just don't like hypocrites. So I decided to make this video because I am not a fan of hypocrites. I'm not a fan of hypocrites. I'm just a fan of the truth. So yeah, I just want to say to those of you who complain, yes, I'm okay with Asians complaining about African immigrants, because these people, they never tried to come here like the Chinese trying to come here and steal Africans and make them slaves. They didn't try that. The Japanese, they didn't try to come to Africa about hundreds of years ago and steal Africans to make them slaves. They didn't. That's why those countries, if you go, the majority, like Asian countries, the majority are just the people there. You have black people problem because you wanted them as your slaves. You thought you found free labor. You can't find free labor on something that you didn't create. Remember, black people were created by God, and God is happily, no matter what you think of black people, God is much impressed with black people. He loves them. That's why he created them and said, okay, these are my people and I love them. That's why God has been keeping them for years and years and years and years. And that's why I'm talking to you. I'm a product of black people. I'm a product of Africans. But you saw slaves when you saw our people. Now, you realize that you cannot make a slave out of something you didn't create. Only a robot you can make a slave. Not a person with a brain. It doesn't work like that. Now you are having black people problem. You created this problem. And I feel like if you create your problem, I think you should deal with it. And I strongly believe that Europeans, they created their own problems by introducing their European Western life to Africans. And I feel like Africans are just European problem to deal with. Europeans, African people, or African immigrants, they are your problems you must deal with, because you created this problem yourself by flocking to Africa, taking our people, trying to make them your slaves. You introduced this lifestyle to us. You introduced sugar to us. Our ancestors didn't know anything about sugar. They didn't know anything about those things. They didn't know anything about pizza. They didn't know anything about Coca-Cola. They didn't know anything about any of these things. They were fine and they were healthy. They were okay. You introduced this thing to them. Now they're flocking to your countries because the African leaders, some of the African leaders are failing to develop their countries. Now the people are running away from poverty. They don't want it. They want the Western life. Now you are complaining. No. Maybe the only thing, let me give you an advice. If you really you don't want African immigrants in Europe, what you can really do, if you ask me, try to help Africans to get rid of dictators in their countries, because those dictators are holding them back. Those dictators try to help Africans to get rid of dictators or those who do not want to leave power, because those people are the main problem why you're going to have more African immigrants. Because when these dictators and these African leaders who do not want to leave power, they are in power for over 10 years, yet they don't want to go. Yet their people are still languishing in poverty, swimming in poverty. Look at their roads. Look at the roads. They're how dirty. They can't even put tar. nice modern roads in their cities. No, potholes, potholes after potholes everywhere. The people are going to leave that kind of lifestyle because they can't fight these detectors, because these detectors or these leaders, they have militaries, they have weapons. If you want to come against them, they will attack you, they'll kill you, they'll shoot you, then they'll do anything to stay in power. So what is going to happen? The people are going to immigrate more in European countries. They're going to immigrate more, more, more. So if you are really serious that you do not want more African immigrants, well, help them to get rid of bad leaderships. Trust me, if Africa has good leadership, the economy are working properly, everything is going well, nobody's going to immigrate to Europe. Nobody. Trust me, nobody. Do you know how hard it is to leave all your family, everything you know, and everyone you know, and everything you know, to go and start over to a country full of people who don't look like you, or full of people you don't even know? It's hard. These people have no choice. These Africans have no choice but to leave, because their leaders are not doing anything for them. So they have no choice but to leave, coming to Europe. So if you are really serious about African immigrants, you really need to look into the leadership, the dictators, or those who don't want to leave power. And you also need to stop causing problems to African countries. Yeah. You need to stop causing problems to African countries. I don't know. I heard that I need to do more investigations on that, but I heard that some European countries, they want to control the minerals, they want to control African leaderships, they want to do. The more you cause problems in Africa, the more immigrants are going to flock to your European countries. It's non-negotiable. It's not a math problem. It's not a math problem. It's not math's problem. It's a reality. The more you cause problems, let me tell you, you so-called first world, you so-called modern world, developed countries, the more you cause problems, not only in Africa, even in other countries, the more you cause wars in those countries, the more you cause problems, the more immigrants from those countries are going to flock into your so-called Western modernized countries looking for better life. It is as simple as cutting butter with a hot knife, as I said. So you can't tell me that you don't want immigrants when you are like causing problems, when you are somehow, causing problems like wars and because the moment, let me tell you this, you Europeans, what you don't know, European and Western people, leaders, what you don't know is that when you endorse the dictatorships in Africa, or the people who don't know, the leaders who don't want to leave power, it means more problems for the African people. And more problems for the African people, it means more African immigrants flocking to your beloved countries in Europe. It's non-negotiable. It's non-negotiable. It's so simple. You're just gonna flock there. And if you try to I know you have been people, you've done a lot of things, racist things. So most of you don't want to be seen as racist. So you're going to accept them. You're going to accept them. So I'm just here to debunk this thing of people complaining about African immigrants. You created this problem, and I feel like if people create their problems, they should deal with it. That's what I think. If you create your own problem, you should deal with it. I feel like Europeans, they created their own problems by trying to invade Africa, forcing Africans, trying to make their slaves in Europe, or introducing European Africans to this modern European way of life. You created your own problem by doing all those things. If you have stayed in your own European countries, you are not going to have any African problems. Even if you were going to, it's going to be very few. You're not going to have any African problems. If some of you will say, oh, you would have been staying in mud huts. Our sisters have been staying in mud huts for millions of years, if not trillions of years. What's new? What's surprising? I'm actually thinking of building my own mud hut. I believe that in life, if you create your own problem, you should deal with it. And I strongly believe that Europeans, they created their own problem by introducing European way of life to Africans, by trying to take Africans to their countries and make them slaves. They created their own problem. They created their own black people problem. In their countries, they created their own African immigrant problem. So Africans are just flocking to Europe looking for better life. You should not be complaining because you introduced this lifestyle to us. Yeah, the beggars, they taste nice. They taste nice. So we are coming for more beggars in Europe. So I think, the reason why I decided to make this video was I'm just tired of hearing that, oh, African immigrants, African immigrants, African immigrants, you created. I'm like, wait a minute. These people are complaining about the problem they created. Does that even make sense? You created this problem by introducing this, your European Western life, to us. So, as I said, the monkey example that I gave you, that if I have a field full of bananas and the monkeys, they don't know that, but you can eat bananas. And then one day I decided to introduce the bananas to the monkeys, and the monkey likes the bananas. They realize you cannot. Now the monkeys are starting to come to my field to steal my bananas. Do I have to complain? This is the problem that I created. This is the problem that I created. If I have not introduced the bananas to the monkeys, I wouldn't have been having the problem to worry about my bananas being eaten or stolen or invaded. Now you're worried about Europe being invaded by Africans. You introduce this lifestyle to Africans, and I feel like I strongly believe that you should just deal with it. I deal with it. As for me, don't worry about me. As for me, don't worry about me. I don't dream or wish of coming to Europe. Not even never. I am an African child. Grew up in Africa, living in Africa, and I'm gonna die in Africa. So don't even, you can worry about other Africans. Definitely not me. I actually have racial phobia. Yes, I don't like to be around people. Too much people don't look like me. Like I don't know if you, I don't know. They call it racial phobia, racial phobia, something like that. So don't worry about me. I don't really dream of coming to Europe or America or whatever. Never. I don't dream of going anywhere outside of Africa. I don't dream. The chances of me staying there is next to zero. Next to zero. It's not impossible. It's not gonna happen. Never say never, but no, I don't like it. No, yeah, it's not happening. It's not happening. So you don't have to worry about me, but you have to worry about other Africans. I strongly believe there are more to come. More to come. So yeah, I decided to make this video because I was just tired of people complaining about African immigrants flocking to their beloved European countries. I just over it. I'm like, wait a minute. These people, they created this problem for themselves. Now they want to complain. That's a little bit hypocritical because, I mean, what were you expecting when you were introducing these people to? You didn't just introduce, you actually forced Africans to this Western life. You forced. That's the fact. Force them to abandon their hearts. Force them to abandon their way of dressing. My sisters were not dressing these things. They were wearing animal skins. Okay? You force this on us. Now that we want more, you are complaining. It doesn't work like that. So I'm here to just say Europeans who complain about black people in Africa and or Africans, I feel like this is just hypocritical. I find it extremely hypocritical. I feel like us Africans, I feel like us black people, we are your problem you have to deal with because you created this problem yourself. You introduced this lifestyle to us. And we just your problem. You created. So next time, Europeans, when you complain about African immigrants, I want you to remember that you created this problem. You people there in Europe, you created this problem by introducing and forcing your way of life on us, on Africans. So I want you to remember that. I'll see you next time on Real Talk with Lillian M.